Hey guys, Zack Hattrick here, once again diving into the weird parts of Star Wars Legends. And today we're looking at the top 5 scariest things, and a thing can be a phenomenon, or a person, or a place, or an event. We're going to keep it pretty general. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Number 5 is hyperspace. And I know what you're thinking, how is hyperspace weird? It's just how people get around in the galaxy. Well, that is of course true. Hyperspace is the main way that people travel long distance, but no one in the Star Wars galaxy really knows how it works, just that they're switching between different dimensions. I mean, just the fact that they are entering another dimension to go through the universe and they don't really know what they're doing, that alone, that mystery makes it kind of creepy to me. There's also the fact that hyperspace travel can go very, very wrong. Take, for example, the Charon. They were involved in a hyperspace disaster, which ended up leaving them stranded in a weird dimension called Other Space. And Other Space, at least to me, is super creepy. Instead of being all black with twinkling stars like regular space is, Other Space is completely white with little bits of black shining through. The Charon were stuck in Other Space for so long that they developed a death cult. And as is suggested by the name, the primary teaching of the death cult is that all life is to return to the void of death. And that's just creepy. So yeah, ending up in Other Space is certainly a real threat when traveling through hyperspace. You could also just accidentally fly into a star, or hit an asteroid, or even if you're really unlucky, somehow travel through time, although I guess that's really not as bad as exploding. There's just something bizarre about going into another dimension, and it almost seems like people from the normal dimension aren't even really meant to be in hyperspace. So for example, you wouldn't really want to look out the window for too long while you were traveling, because you could get what was called hyper rapture, which was essentially some sort of madness. Number 4 is Darth Nihilus, the Lord of Hunger. First of all, just look at his outfit, especially his mask. I mean, it's pure terror. But I mean, compared to the rest of him, it's really not so bad. Nihilus was present for the detonation of the mass shadow generator during the Battle of Malachor V. Somehow, experiencing this great destruction turned him into a wound of the Force. Now what this exactly is kind of uncertain, but when there's a great amount of trauma or loss of life, the Force itself literally sustains an injury. And Darth Nihilus was actually the living, breathing version of that injury. Eventually Nihilus's physical body decayed, and he became simply a spirit residing within robes and armor. But he continued to grow in power and developed a hunger for life and for the Force. And eventually, really, the Sith Lord became more of a force of nature rather than any sort of actual being. All in all, Nihilus' motivations, his look, his voice, and everything about him make him worth the number 4 spot on this list. Number 3 is the Star Weird, and I've talked about them briefly in a recent video, so I'm not going to go too in-depth. But Star Weirds were like these ghosts in space, and they have a really disturbing look to them. They're extremely gaunt and long, they have flowing white hair which will flow even if there's no wind, and they have very dead looking eyes. But really how they act is more frightening than what they look like, and they existed only in deep, deep parts of space, and it seems like they would kind of just float there until someone came nearby. And when someone did come nearby, especially if they were force sensitive, they would go through the ship, start screaming at them with this terrible shriek, and then they would kill them with their claws. And the only way you can really fight them is through the Force or through a force field, and conventional weapons won't do any harm to them. All in all, these creatures are extremely powerful. They seem to be somehow connected to the dark side of the Force, and it's just creepy that they lurk in the deep parts of space waiting for victims. And oh yeah, tying back to number 5, they will also appear in hyperspace sometimes. Number 2, I've split between 2 different things because they're extremely similar, and the first thing I want to talk about briefly is the Mnggal-Mnggal. And I've mentioned the Mnggal-Mnggal in 2 previous videos, but I will briefly give a little recap right now. The Mnggal-Mnggal was pretty much gray goo, and all of the Mnggal-Mngals seem to operate as one conscious sentient being. And the Mnggal-Mnglal's main goal was to cause as much harm and as much suffering as possible, and they were really sick and kind of disturbing. There were a few things they did, and the main one was taking over living beings. They would find some sort of orifice in a living being's body and enter them, and then replace their insides and their brain with their gray goo. And eventually, after they had done that, over a few days, they could actually take that person over. And they were just really weird. Like, they would do things like collect thousands of starships and make a ring around their home planet, or cause people extreme amounts of suffering by killing their child in front of them, reanimating it, killing it again over and over and over again. Many species believe that the Now was actually from another dimension, and kind of even to make things a little bit creepier, it's also been theorized that the Great Hyperspace Disturbance, which bisects the unknown regions, was created to keep the Now away from the rest of the galaxy. So these creatures, or I guess I should say, this creature is so disturbing, so deadly, and so really just destructive that it had to be isolated from the rest of the galaxy. And just the fact that this thing came from another dimension, not unlike, say, Waru, kind of just adds to the general uneasiness. The Now was very similar to Imperial Project Blackwing, which was, of course, also very disturbing, and some people have suggested that the two are actually the same. Project Blackwing used a viral agent known as the Sickness, and when you were infected with the Sickness, this fluid started to accumulate within your body, and eventually it would replace all of your organs, including, of course, your brain. Once it had full control of your body, you were pretty much a zombie and you were at the will of the Sickness, and there was really nothing that could be done at that point. Number 1 is the closest thing that Star Wars will probably ever get to Lovecraftian horror, and that, of course, is Abeloth. And the story around Abeloth and her effects on others, I think, is incredibly interesting and also pretty disturbing. Abeloth's story is very, very weird, and I'm not going to cover it all in this video, but she was born as just a normal person. However, she served the extremely powerful Ones and eventually became the Mother. Unlike the Ones, she wasn't actually immortal, so her life was coming to an end while her family, obviously, was continuing to live. In a bid to try to get this power, she drank from the font of power and bathed in the pool of knowledge. And these were very powerful force areas located in the realm of Beyond Shadows. And I mean, Beyond Shadows is weird enough. It's kind of like this alternate dimension that you get to by meditating for a really long time and disconnecting the force from your body. And while there, you have crazy force visions of the past and the future, and you can go to these really powerful force areas, which are called force nexuses. Anyway, her actions ended up turning her into Abeloth, and Abeloth is an extremely powerful dark side entity. She was actually so powerful that the Ones and the Killiks worked together to imprison her within the Maw, and the Maw is the center of the Star Wars galaxy. And they did so by creating extremely powerful technological artifacts, including Centerpoint Station and Sinkhole Station. Anyway, I'm getting off track, but just being near Sinkhole Station would cause people who were force sensitive to get these crazy visions and actually get what was called force psychosis. And this was an extreme form of paranoia and mental illness just caused by being so close to this extremely powerful entity. Abeloth was actually extremely powerful in other ways as well. She could drain people of their force energy, which obviously killed them. She could take over people's minds, and she could assume any appearance that she wanted to. And her standard appearance is actually really creepy too. She had long, kind of blonde hair, a mouth that went from ear to ear, and very frightening eyes, and probably most notably tentacles for arms. She's just so weird and actually so powerful too, and dangerous, and so much so that Jedi and Sith work together to defeat her. I'm not sure if I actually like her as a character, but just the fact that her pure power that she exudes is able to affect the minds of people that are around her, and that she's dabbled with these really powerful dark side and light side too powers, it's just all really disturbing and really creepy, and for that reason, she's the number 1 scariest thing in the Star Wars universe. Anyways, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this list. I know that a lot of you like the weird part of Star Wars Legends, so this video was for you. Let me know down in the comments if you like this list, and of course, if there's anything that you think I missed. Also, if you made it this far, let me know down in the comments how well you think your favorite horror movie character or creature, whether good or bad, would do in the Star Wars universe. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Eckhart's Ladder. I'll speak to you again very soon, and may the Force be with you.